Namaste, lads and ladies. Welcome back finally to another manga review. It's been way too long. About what, 5-6 weeks, something like that. I will say that's due to the fact that we basically did a 10-day mourning thing for our queen, our previous queen, Elizabeth II, bless her heart. And now we have a king, King Charles, and all that. Couldn't be any more happy, really. I feel like Charles is ready for it and all that. But yes, ever since that time, it's been a while since I've been looking for a good book to sit down and review, really, because there aren't really that many mangas that I find that are quite enjoyable to read. You know, they have to have that specificness to them that really reach out to me in a certain sense, you know. I mean, I'm not the type of guy that will just be like, I'll review this and review that. You know, I need to have like an attachment to it in a certain sense. I have to have something unique about the book for me to latch onto it, basically, in a certain sense. Which is a good thing for this next book because I finally found it, lads and ladies. The 10th volume of Konohana Kitan. Finally got it. Finally managed to find it. I finally got the book and I'm finally here to review it, basically. A quick little read, has like a good 160 odd pages in it, quick little read and all that, and I'm kind of happy to finally get a hold of it, really, because about 6 months ago or so I tried looking for it and for some reason it was just impossible to find, although I did manage to find one book of it, but it was in German, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to sit down and learn the entire language just to translate it. I mean, I could just use Google, but then I thought to myself, no, I want to be able to read it without having to look at my app just to like sort out the translations here and there and all that, basically, or call up a German friend of mine and have them translate it for me. So I just thought, sod it, I'm going to keep on looking for it. So I did manage to find the volume. I'm really happy to read it because this continues on the journey that happens with Satsuki and Yuzu on their trip on the train, which basically takes them throughout time and space and throughout all over the realms, basically. Well, I say time and space, it's more like space and like heaven, earth, and other places, basically. So we follow the story of Yuzu and Satsuki, and it's basically one giant filler at the beginning for like the first 15 pages, where it goes over the lives of the women from Konohana and some of the other places around, like at the Shrine Maidens place and all other stuffs and other sorts like that. How we see the people that Yuzu has interacted with and how she's changed their lives in a certain sense. Whereas with this, we kind of see the fact that it's Konohana, like the hotel itself, that has really affected these people's lives. It kind of like brings. I'm jumping forward a little bit here, but this kind of like speaks volumes when Satsuki is speaking with this elderly woman who's on the train with them, where she kind of says to Satsuki, even though you didn't choose your path, the current life you're on now, like that current path you're on, it doesn't take away from the fact that the people that you've met and the experiences you've had are because of that choice, and whatever choices that happen to you, bad or good, it's down to you in a certain sense. And it's down to you to see the light and the darkness in your choices, basically. It's all about taking responsibility and enjoying the choices that you make in a certain sense, taking enjoyment out of some of them in a certain sense, which is quite nice, really, because I feel like Satsuki, she's a lovely woman deep down, but I feel like her prickly demeanor kind of like says otherwise, and I don't think she's given enough time to like really develop as a character when she was younger, because when she was younger her sister was chosen to be a shrine maiden, and she saw that as an opportunity. She should have seen it as an opportunity to like find her own way in life and find her own thing that she really wants to do, which is why she's on this journey now. She's kind of traveling to find out like what is the reason for me being here, what is my end game goal, where what I like about Yuzu is the fact that her end goal is with Satsuki. We all know it, she knows it. Wherever Satsuki is, that's her game goal. It's the same with like a relationship in a certain sense. If you're with a specific person, it doesn't matter where you end up. It's who you're with that makes the journey that much more enjoyable, really. And I've always been akin to that, basically. It's like with my mother, bless her heart, when we were younger, she would always try her damnedest to give me and my sisters a holiday, a form of escape in a certain sense. And I always say to her, you don't have to take us on holidays to these places, it's the time we spend with one another that matters really. Which is why I always loved my excursions away from England to Greece, because it was like the only times when I got to really appreciate, you know, the thing that my mother would do for our family, basically. You know, that's why I always hold her in such high esteem, really, in a certain sense. I love my mother because she's willing to, you know, push through barriers and, you know, make all these changes for the family, really. I mean, yes, she's made mistakes in the past. What parent hasn't, you know? My father is also one that's made mistakes in the past, but at the end of the day, it's because of those choices that we are at where we are now. And when I look back at my life and I think to myself, can I really regret or hate or not like my upbringing? I'd say no, because where I am now is who I am, and that's the man I've become, basically. It's because of my choices that I've been able to overcome certain things and, you know, accept the fact that my life is what it is, really. It's my life, you know, which is the troubling thing for Satsuki in a certain sense, because with her, she it still doesn't know in a certain sense, and I like how it kind of gives that vagueness about her, you know, not having an end goal, because you don't, I feel like as human beings, we tend too much to focus on our end game at the beginning of our lives. You know, when we're young, we always wish we grew up faster in a certain sense, and it's silly. Children shouldn't have to think and wish to grow up faster. But then there are some cases where they have to grow up fast in a certain sense, you know, and, you know, it's good for development, but, you know, not really good for the child when all they want is to just live as a child, you know. I'd kill for my days when I was in primary school again, you know, because those were some of the most peaceful times. But it doesn't mean that, you know, sometimes peace is the best thing in the world, really, because, you know, in peaceful times it creates weak men in a certain sense, and hard times creates hardened men in a certain sense, you know what I mean? So there has to be a balance in a certain sense. So carrying on with the story, they meet this elderly woman who is actually on the train to meet her husband, who unfortunately got taken from her when a war took place in a certain sense, and it's a very heartfelt and very tragic thing, really. But it kind of like goes through her life with this man, and how she kind of explains to Satsuki, you know, like, she explains to Satsuki that Yuzu is here because her end goal is with you in a certain sense, and it's quite touching. That's why she's on the train looking for her end goal, which is her husband, basically. You know, she does regret sometimes of like letting him go off to do his thing, but that was his choice to go off and do his thing, to join a war, to, well, it's not usually the case. Sometimes you're conscripted, sometimes things play a part in war, but ultimately that was his choice to go to war to protect his family, to protect the one he loved, to protect the woman he loved, basically. You know, I love the age-old quote of like, you know, it's not what's in front of us, you know, that we're fighting for. It's not the enemy we're fighting, it's for what's behind us that we're fighting. It's the people we leave behind, you know. That's why I always, you know, give support for the help for heroes most of the time whenever I get the opportunity, or whenever I celebrate you know, the Remembrance Day in November, because of my grandfather and my great-grandfather. You know, like, my great-grandfather might not have been the most, you know, decent bloke when it came to sticking with one woman, you know, but at the end of the day, I can respect that he fought for his country and fought for his family, you know. We're not all, it's not as black and white as you tend to think of it, really. We're not all saints and we're not all sinners. There's a little bit in between. Yeah, there's one more than others, but, you know, I can definitely know where pride is when it comes to a soldier in a certain sense, you know, even though they might just be tools for some people to, you know, manipulate, unfortunately. That's probably why I can never be a soldier, because I can't see myself being manipulated like that in a certain sense, to be told, like, you know, go here and shoot someone. You tell me that, I can't do it, you know, I can't do that. Without them being like a specific reason for me wanting to end their existence, then no, I can't do that. I can't do that. You know, I feel like that has to be a significant threat for me to be able to take up arms and defend my country, you know, and only then would that be the case, really. We continue on the story where this little girl basically comes across the train. She kind of hops on. Yuzu and Satsuki help her to try and get back to her hometown. She's kind of shunned by the people in the town, but a very, very specific reason. She thinks it's because the townspeople are mean to her. She feels like she's done something wrong and all that. And there's this lovely bit where Satsuki, just out of character, just like starts crying and starts not belittling the girl, but like teaching her like not to be within this town, or to go off and just do whatever she pleases and all that. And she like says this random stuff like how, I didn't raise you to be like this, and I'm like thinking, what are you on about? You haven't raised her. And then the little girl was saying the same thing, and that's when I think to myself, wait, this is a spirit realm, and the mother of this child, who probably died in a disaster, because there's this little flashback of her seeing a volcano erupt. I don't know if this is a specific volcano. I believe this is a reference to a Edo period volcano going off. I can't remember if it was Mount Fuji. I don't know if Mount Fuji has erupted within the past 200 years or something like that, but I'm pretty sure it's dormant for now. But there was this huge disaster where she basically is being like helped and warned by all of these civilians within the city, to get out of the city, to stay away, and Satsuki has been trying to warn, like the original Satsuki, not the mother taking, like, transmogrifying herself into Satsuki, is warning this little girl, if you eat here, like if you eat in this place and if you stay here for too long, then, you're not dead. So if you do eat here and you stay here, you will become like a wandering soul, though. So that's why you have to get out of the city and go back to where you are, because like her body is in that stage where it's unconscious and it's fighting to stay alive. So when she does wake up, she's then within the realm of the living again. And I like the aspect of the mother taking like control of Satsuki. Like, not, she doesn't take control of Satsuki. She basically transforms herself into Satsuki to kind of like not keep herself like within the living. She's keeping herself within the realm of the living, but in the form of another, in a certain sense. So it's not breaking the laws of the mother actually conversing with her child, in a certain sense. You know what I mean? Because if the daughter had conversed with the mother, then I feel like that would have been it. Like, the daughter was willing to give up her life just to see her mother again. Decent dedication, but even the villagers were like, shouldn't wish your own death just to see your mother. Like, we'll wait until you're ready to pass on. That's what they tried to warn her about. That's what was all the, pushing and shoving and like getting out that they were saying to her was for, basically, was to get to move on away from the city so she can wake up again, basically. Because she still has a father, that is out there, hoping and praying that she's still alive, basically. And she does wake up eventually, but there's like this other lovely bit where Yuzu notices Satsuki isn't Satsuki when she notices some small things about her, where she like tears up a little bit from one of the stories the little girl is talking about, and she kind of feels bad about telling Satsuki, like, it felt weird seeing you like change from one thing to another, because she doesn't normally show emotion. Only does she show emotion when she's truly touched or she's angry. So she's usually a very emotional person when it comes to anger and like sadness, in a certain sense, but or happiness, basically, because she does blush from time to time, but she's not one to actively show her emotions, which is kind of refreshing, really, to see from a woman, really, because most women you see are very emotional when it comes to certain decision making. So for Satsuki, she's quite level-headed half of the time, where Yuzu mostly focuses on like what's in front of her, and like, she's a very kind-hearted person, but I feel like her kindness can be used against her way too much, really, especially when it came to the child coming onto the train, because the villagers like were trying to warn the child like not to go to the train, like warning, don't go on the train, just wait, stay still. But impatience of children, you see, they endanger themselves. Like, there was a story of myself when I would like ran out of my house one day. I was like maybe 4 or 5 or something like that. I feel bad for my mum because she was like busy with the housework and getting ready to go to work and all that stuff. Dad was at work as well, so not many people could have been there to like babysit me at the time, apart from my grandmother, bless her heart. And my grandmother like lived down the road from me and my mum, like at our old home, basically. I was like walking down this alleyway, and these 2 gentlemen, bless their hearts, they kind of like stopped me, and like they noticed my mum at the top of the alleyway, like coming down, rushing, like apologising and all that stuff, like thanking the heavens that that these gentlemen were kind enough to stop me, basically. And I really do feel bad for one of them, because like kind of like scolded her, which understandable. You know, you should scold the parents for stuff like that. You know, keep an eye on your children, but sometimes you can't blame the parent when the child is way too adventurous for their own good. You know, and I was a very adventurous child. Like, I used to remember like climbing trees in other people's gardens from time to time, and my mum would always like get really upset with me for that stuff. But I just like to climb trees, and I saw this one neighbour's tree, and I just thought, I gotta climb that. You know, they were fine with it. The neighbours, you know, they understood. But you know, it kind of got annoying like when it was like 6 in the afternoon, and I'm still sitting in their tree. You know, just picking apples off of their trees and all that, and giving them a bite here and there. You know, I mean, technically, it's known as scrumping. You know, you don't steal a man's apples, basically. But they didn't mind. They weren't using them. My belly needed them more. But yeah. So the story with Konohana Kitan there is quite a lovely one. There's this nice, funny comedic bit where the ticket master is on the train with them, and he's asking them for the tickets. And there's this very odd bit with Satsuki where she kind of does like, she pulls a Yuzu face, which kind of like, hang on, let me show you. It's like this confused face in a certain sense, but it's like bubbly eyes, and she's kind of like, oh god, I'm sorry, like, you know. I think it was because of a ticket that someone gave her. Like, it's the most rare, extremely expensive ticket where, you know, those all-you-can-eat passes, you know, for like KFC and stuff like that, where it was like this, but for train journeys, basically. That's this little face there, that little face there. Like, it's just so cute where she's just like looking at him like, oh god, someone gave me that for free? Like, what? Who would give me this for free? I can't remember. I think it was Okami that gave. Yeah, it was either Okami or Kiri that gave that to her. Yeah, because it was meant to be like the most expensive train ticket, and I would think to myself that, you know, well, since she's not using it, then it's fine. You know, just go off and do your adventures with it. She's not using it, so it's fine. But Satsuki is so caring, but without being like outwardly caring, if that makes any sense. Like, she's very understandable. Kind of like with me in a certain sense when someone would like, or whenever I'd go to my friend's house, they would offer me food, and me thinking I was being kind by like turning them down on their food, I was actually being quite rude. But the way I look at it is that, you know, I'm used to saving food because of my thing when I was a kid. Basically, we used to save food because we didn't have much money really stuff at the time. So I would basically save food whenever I can, but only give food out to those that really needed it, basically, in a certain sense. So I would always turn down food because I thought the family needed it more than me, in a certain sense. You know, I know they're just doing a kind gesture, and you know, you're meant to do that as a guest, but as a, you know, when you welcome guests into your home, you give them food to welcome them in and all that. So me turning down an awful lot of people's food, you know, when you're watching this, I can only apologise, because that's just the way my brain works, unfortunately. You know, I think I'm saving you like 2 months of biscuits, basically, in tea. It's stupid, because tea's water at the end of the day. You know, you can get water wherever you can, basically. You can get water from the rain, for fuck's sake. You know, and the biscuits, bloody hell, like, it's just a biscuit, you know. So that's pretty much the book in itself. It does go over a couple of the other deeper stories of the characters from the past and the present and the future. Like, some of the kitsunes from the previous establishments, like at the Shrine Maidens area, are now in Konohana Kitan. Kind of like how Karin and Yuzuhara are now there now. So it's kind of nice to see where they've come, and how this one responsible kitsune is now working at Konohana, but she's still kind of she hasn't changed as a character in a certain sense, but she's become a little bit more responsible. She's not snapping at people left, right and centre, which is good, because it shows character development. You know, it's just nice to see that in a certain sense. And there's this one story that I really like in this, which is called Hidden Love, where it kind of focuses around Sakura and Ren, but from 2 different perspectives. So Ren is basically talking to this one guy who is the love interest of this woman who Sakura is talking to, but it bases itself off of like a card. I think it's either a card game or something similar to that. But the story goes is that they are both poets, very well astute poets, and the only way that they can remain normal to one another the only way they find love is through their poetry to one another. Basically, it's the only thing that feels normal to them in a certain sense. So, she's a royalist. He's a commoner basically, and you know the only way they find common ground is through their poetry in a certain sense. And I like how it kind of goes over, this one bit when they're in the meadow where he stops her with his poetry, because he's quite unfit, he can't keep up with her, which is kind of funny because she's in like this kimono which she can't even like move too fast, she can't run, so it's kind of funny how even though she's in this kimono he can't even keep up with her. It's like, what, you've been writing poems your whole life, you haven't had time to exercise? Come on, man, make time for that stuff. But no, I like this bit how he stops her with his poetry, and when he finally catches her off guard, he like tackles her to the ground, like really forcefully tackles her to the ground, and they roll about in the meadow, and she just laughs about it, and I just find that so funny. Because if you can find yourself a partner that sees the funniness in everything, then you've got yourself a keeper there. And that's what I always say to my mates of mine. If you're dating a woman and she, you open the car door for her, she gets in the car. If she reaches over and opens your car door for you, you've got yourself a keeper. Because that means she's very thoughtful and she's thinking about you in that certain sense, basically. So what I always say to my mates is, when you put her in the car, you open the door, put her in the car door, just wait like maybe half a second, or like check your phone, make sure you're checking the weather all the time and all that stuff, but look through the back window and see if she reaches over. If she doesn't reach over, maybe she didn't think about it, like there are different variables and all that stuff, but if she does reach over, like if she instinctively reaches over and opens the door for you, it's all weird. Basically. And there's this interesting bit where it kind of explains the story about these two, how even though I feel like the story is the fact that he's not even real, but the story of him is so real in her poetry that she has made him real in a certain sense. And that's what I quite like about poetry, is the fact that we can imagine things so strongly and we can have investments into things so strongly that it sometimes works. It's the same thing with faith. If you believe in something so hard, then it's a possibility that that can push you further than you can imagine, basically. So that's why I always appreciate faith, even though I'm not a believer, because with faith, if you believe in something that much, then imagine what it could do for your normal life. Imagine what it could do for your fitness and your health, basically. If you believe that much in a higher up, then imagine how much faith you could have in yourself when you finally turn that faith inwards on yourself, basically. There's always a nice lesson that you can learn from this book of Konohana Kitan and its characters, basically. And that's why I love this book so much, because their characters are part of Konohana Kitan. Like Konohana the hotel, is basically an extension of these people's character. And that's what I really love about this story, is how it's able to tell a person's story through the hotel and through their adventures and their stories and their life and all that. Which is why it inspired me to really talk about my tattoo storytime things, because I really like to tell the story of my life and the tattoos that I've gotten over the years, because they're essentially a piece of me. They're a piece of my story that I'm sharing with you people out there. So, I really hope you really enjoy the stories that I put out for you, because I really do appreciate everyone that tunes in and listens to my stories, really, because it's just so lovely to share a piece of myself with you, when it's just me and a camera, basically. It kind of feels a bit lonely from time to time, but I've always got my stories to share. That's what all we can really do, basically, is to just share our stories and hope that these stories can inspire others to express themselves in their own unique ways, really. So, with that, we have finally gotten through the 10th volume of Konohana Kitan, and I believe there's an 11th volume. I thought this was the final volume. It is not. Unfortunately, I have to do another long wait for the 11th volume to hopefully drop at a later date. So for that, I can only apologise, lads and ladies. What will be going on, I won't be doing a tattoo story time, maybe until after a couple more uploads of some rugby or DVD. But I will be focusing on one on my arm next, it will be one on my forearm, and I'll be working my way up to my shoulder and my back and then my chest, basically. Because I will be doing another tattoo on the 21st I'm going to be filling in this entire forearm. So I'll be getting a half sleeve done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in all of these little gaps of the skin on my arm. I'm going to be getting some light turquoise clouds, basically. It's in Japanese style. Hopefully it'll look good. I've got my main man Brian on it. It's going to be beautiful. And yeah, I can't wait to tell the story about that, how I'll be getting it done. And I'll be using tattoo numbing cream for the first time for that, because to be quite honest, I am done with the pain. I'm too old. I'm too old for the pain. I'm done with the pain. I don't care. Call me a pussy, whatever you like. I'm done with it. Because the last time I did a 6 to 7 hour tattoo, I was shaking. You know, like maybe I didn't eat enough or something, but it killed me. When I got my Gardevoir tattoo, it fucking killed me. So I am not doing that again. I'll use whatever numbing cream I can for it. So yeah, fuck the pain. You know, fuck the pain away. So. Yes, until the next video or whatever I do around here, I shall see you all in whatever I next do around here, my friends. So, thank you all for joining me for another little lovely book review. It's been way too long for this one, and hopefully I won't leave it too long for the next one. So, with that, lads and ladies, I thank you ever so much for joining me, and take care, my friends. Bye!